All right, we are back. Fresh takes, Russo and Felice. Paul Russo, across from me as always, man, myth, legend himself, Nick Felice. Nick, it's an exciting time for us. We'll get into everything, obviously, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Paul. Thanks. Thanks for asking. It's the last week of January this week. I'm excited about that.
We got through like the worst month of the year.
It is the worst month of the year. It's just boring. It's cold. Finally starting to get some snow. Not a big fan of that, but
I'm not a big fan. I could do so. Like, where do you stand on this? Because, like, I don't like the snow at all, period. But I could deal with the snow as long as it's not, like, cold. But, like, what it is like right now where it's cold and snow, that's where, like, for me, it's just, like, an abomination. Like,
yeah, it's weird. It's funny. I probably hate the cold more than the snow.
I don't disagree with that statement.
No, it's just like I'm a 70 degrees guy. I'm not a 90 degrees guy.
Oh, I'd rather it be 90 than this, though. Like, any day.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I agree. Yeah, I'll agree with that. But I am just a 70 degrees guy.
You subscribe to that theory.
But the snow's not fun either, though.
No.
I don't mind the snow, like walking in it. Some people don't like it because it gets in your shoes and stuff. But I just hate driving in it. That's the number one thing. I just don't like driving in it. I did it. I went to Sodas last Saturday.
Yeah, that was a really bold experience for you, I feel like.
What's the road? 104?
Yeah.
Once I got on there, it was not bad.
Well, 104
had a little bit of an incident in Sodas, slipping a little, but we were good.
Well, 104, I mean, they keep clear enough as HQ is apparently going on right now. But, like, just because it's right on the lake like that, like, it still gets bad. Like, I remember going up to Oswego, where Pat went to college, obviously, and, like, especially out that way where it gets, like, super hilly in spots, like, it's gnarly.
414 was bad that Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I only went over about 45 miles an hour, so
a couple times.
Luckily, there wasn't too many people out, but, didn't enjoy that. But,
it's not pleasant.
No. We'll see.
But speaking of sodas.
Almost Groundhog's Day, man. The Groundhog's got some good news.
Speaking of sodas, though, in a weird way to kind of bridge our topics to topic, NFL Championship Sunday we'll discuss. A lot of stuff there. Baseball Hall of Fame talk. I might have a Stephen A. Smith moment on the podcast tonight.
Really?
Oh, man. And
on the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, high school sports are back. We'll discuss a little bit of...
Whoa. High school hoops are
back.
Yeah,
but
wrestling... Don't you be making fun of my bowling.
Well, wrestling will be back as well, but we'll talk hoops more or less for us because that's where our lane is here at Finger Lakes 1. That's where, Nick, our lane is in general anyway between us two. We'll talk a little bit there. I don't want to make it sound like we have some great information to tell you. We aren't going to sit here and speculate about what. We'll just talk about what we're kind of excited for just overall with that and stuff like that. So
sounds good.
No sense, like I said, with that to speculate when nobody really knows a heck of a whole lot anyway at the moment anyway. So
nope, and we're going to know a lot more this year.
That's true. At least me and you, just knowledge-wise.
Fish out of water doing the announcement last year, but we're going to be better this year.
All right, Nick. Where were you the day that Tom Brady has the same amount of NFC Championship games as Aaron Rodgers and Rex Grossman? Well, I was at home.
I was at home, too.
But the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, they are heading
to the Super Bowl.
To the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 55. Let's start with, obviously, the first game. Buccaneers, Packers. I never thought, so like I'll put it from a gambling perspective. I went all in on the Chiefs and Buccaneers. I mean, normally in this situation like last year, hedge myself a little bit, kind of just cover my rear end a little bit. This year I just went all in. I said, screw it, we're going all in. I had that much of a feeling. Paid off. As much as it felt like the Packers were never in the game, the Buccaneers did their best in the second half to try and keep them in it. It still is Tom Brady. I don't know why. I myself in this chair last season, I won't say last year because it was 2019 when I said this. I thought Brady was done. I thought we saw the age finally catch up to old Tom. Look, how old takes exposed myself. Sure, he's not as good as he once was. But you know what? He's still better than probably 22, at minimum 22 quarterbacks in this league.
He's the GOAT.
I mean, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But, I mean, in all seriousness, he's definitely the best at minimum in our lifetime.
Yes.
At his peak. Obviously the GOAT discussion's always going to be up in the air. I kind of lean to the side of, maybe Montana, looking back through history. But it's getting harder for me not to just say Tom Brady at this point. I mean, it just is. The stuff he's able to do, and I said this to some people the other day. I think this year especially, I don't think it was Tom's play that got them this far. I think it was Tom's leadership ability that got them this far. He still has got a lot left in the tank in that arm. But you saw, in the second half against the Packers, he had what we call in football a couple of arm punts that were one was intercepted. He has certain situations like that now where, if this was even 5 years ago, I think we were having a different discussion of what it was. But simply put, no matter what, age catches up to you. We know that will happen with Tom eventually. Age is undefeated. Time is undefeated. It just hits you at different times. But this year especially, his leadership and Bruce Arians trusted him to be able to kind of make more decisions for himself. We know Brady would call audibles at the line anyway for New England. But Arians given him the ability to, if you just see something on the field, ignore what we tell you in that earpiece, call whatever you want to call. I think that's been a big difference maker this year for Tampa, because you look at his game stats, for instance, just from against Green Bay, that was a game that Jameis Winston had all year last year, and we would mock Jameis relentlessly for it. But this year, we're praising Tom Brady. Now, I think that's also a bit of the tale of two quarterbacks in a way. Obviously Jameis isn't Tom, but I think Jameis is better than what people think he is. Different discussion. But, I want to double check the yards to be sure before I say whatever. So yeah, as I click on the wrong game anyway. Nick Saban, yeah. So he threw for 280 yards and 3 TDs, 3 interceptions. Jameis does that last year with Machman, but Tom this year with that, even though that's what he's doing, I think is just completely 180 an organization that for a number of years, even though they had good leadership in Greg Schiano and Dirk Cutter, just kind of floundered with really good talent. And this year it's kind of come to light with Arians, with Brady, and with that coaching staff. That coaching staff overall behind Arians is really good. I don't think we should sleep on it. Byron Leftwich is showing himself to be, in my mind, with probably even just one more year, I think, of offensive coordinating, to be a very good head coaching candidate. Obviously, Todd Bowles, the DC, he knows what he's doing. So the Buccaneers this year have been really good. I think that came to light really in this game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This will be the 25th Super Bowl of my life.
We've been around for almost half of them now.
Yeah, we're pretty old. But, Tom Brady's the GOAT. His team's loaded, though. New England, he didn't have a lot of weapons these last couple years.
Yeah. Well, this is also probably the best line he's played with in at least a decade-ish.
Yep. Like you said, though, I agree. He's probably leading them with his leadership, not really his talent. Yeah. I mean, his team's just that good. And I just didn't – when they beat the Saints, then I started becoming a believer because the Saints owned them in the regular season, and then they just took care of them.
Well, as soon as they beat the Saints, I knew just hammer them against the Packers. Yeah. Just you have to.
Did you win a parlay with it?
I won 2.
There you go. Congrats.
The only one I lost on was because of a player parlay because Ronald Jones was non-existent in that game.
What'd you need?
6 receiving yards.
6 receiving yards. Well, I'll say is I will be rooting for Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Just because, now he's been to 10 Super Bowls, looking to win 7th. He was the first guy quarterback to be part of I guess Matt Ryan too, but he was a part of the first ever overtime game in Super Bowl.
That's true.
He took the first team to ever host a Super Bowl. Yeah, and he's got the worst winning percentage. I don't know if they are still, but going into the season, they had the worst winning percentage in NFL history for a franchise. He took them to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some pretty good. Those are some pretty good stats just to add on to his already great career.
And think about the path they had to go through to get to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
you had to go through.
Well, first of all, Heineke.
Well, yes.
That's a stud.
But you go through what ends up being probably a top 10 defense in the NFL this year in Washington.
Chase Young, yep.
Obviously, you go in a tough environment in New Orleans. And
Drew
then
Brees.
you go into 100% a tough environment in Lambeau this
Aaron
time
Rodgers.
of year. So
It'll be Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, now Pat Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick
Whoa.
Mahomes, sorry. And
bold predictions. Save those for next week.
Forgot it's 2 weeks. But I'll be rooting for Tom Brady. Not because I'm a Buccaneers fan or a Tom Brady fan or a New England fan. I could care less about them. I just, as a New York Giants fan, the more you build up on this guy's career, the more he does. The more he does. I wish I had that Eli Manning photo on the beach right now. Eli Manning still beat this guy twice in the biggest game. And if he keeps building up his career, I was kind of a little bummed when Nick Foles did it. But Nick Foles is also a goofball and not a great quarterback either. So
don't discredit Eli like that.
I'm not discrediting him, but,
Eli's better than Peyton,
Don't know about that.
I mean, Peyton didn't do it against Tom Brady, but Eli did. How about that?
It's just crazy. I think we said this last week, but now Patrick Mahomes, you could add him on to the Roethlisberger, Manning, Brady trio, quadruple now, going to the Super Bowl. He's just going to start a trend, and it's going to be that 1 year of Joe Flacco in there in the mix of all these quarterbacks going through the AFC.
So before we get to the other game, bringing up Mahomes, I do want to talk about the Packers quick. Numerically speaking, I understand going for the field goal with 5 minutes left in the game. But if I'm the coach in that situation, I'm leaving Rodgers with the ball. Now it sets up a really interesting offseason for Green Bay. Depending upon who you listen to, Aaron Rodgers wants out. I don't know what's going to really happen here. This is, for being as great as Rodgers is, he sure, and obviously there are factors, but he sure doesn't show up when it matters in a sense. It's going to be, if you're a Packers fan, this is going to be an interesting offseason. Kind of probably show your future a little bit. I don't know if we'll see the Jordan Love era week 1 next year. But I also don't know if we'll see another year in the Rodgers era either.
I know it's kind of interesting because Jordan Love, they've had these backups that they've never gotten the chance because of Rodgers there. But Jordan Love is kind of like we probably said this before.
I mean, he is waiting in the wings.
He's literally what Rodgers was to Brett Favre when he was there. So, the kid's gonna play someday. I don't know if it's gonna be next year. It's gonna be sometime. He's gonna play for the Green Bay Packers someday, Jordan Love. And it would be something to see how he does, because not a lot of people know what he can do. We've seen some rookies come in this year, and they've done really well, like the Herberts and the Joe Burrows of the world. And makes me a little jealous because I think they're already better than Danny Dimes, and don't know what to expect out of Danny Dimes. It would have been nice to make the playoffs there, get a little experience, but Heineke got it, and. Is Heineke the guy? I know not to get too off track, but is Heineke the guy there?
So, depending upon if they bring in somebody, whether it's trade or free agency, if they don't bring in anybody, I think he played himself into an opportunity to at least try and get the chance to start week 1. I don't think he should. I mean, he's good, don't get me wrong, but I think he's a backup. I think we really caught lightning in a bottle. In that situation. I mean, it helps you have the only film you really have of the guy is from college from 3 years ago, pretty much. I mean, he was a backup with the Panthers, had some snaps there, but, nothing to sit there in the film room and have a database on. So, I don't know. I don't know for Washington what that situation is going to be like. The Chiefs take down the Buffalo Bills. Oh, man.
I know, that kills you.
Tremendous moment for me on Sunday. Oh, man. I mean, look. At least I don't have to deal with Bills Mafia for a little bit.
Yeah, it will not be 2 weeks.
I mean, look, it's like what we alluded to last week, man. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a freaking X factor and a half. I mean, he's got to be the most dynamic quarterback in our at minimum in our lifetimes, maybe ever in the NFL. Just with the skill set that he has, I mean,
it's going to be incredible what he does.
I mean, there have been guys before him, right? Who have had stuff like him, but I mean, this guy has it freaking all right now. I mean, just absurd, ridiculous stuff. I don't know where to kind of start with Bills fans. Like it never seemed like they were in the game in a sense, Again, controversy in this game involving a field goal. In this situation, I 100% would have gone for the field goal too. You don't get the ball to come out of the second half, to come out of halftime with the start of the second half. I mean, you got to get some sort of positive in your mind going against Patrick Mahomes, and unfortunately for them, I mean, they just couldn't get the stop when it mattered most in the second half, which was that first drive. I mean, they couldn't. You stop them in the first drive at some point, I think you're back in that ball game, but they just couldn't, and it doomed them. But I mean, they were like never. It never felt like they were in the game, and Josh Allen played literally his worst game in a calendar year, pretty much. Going back to probably that Houston game where just mistakes kind of killed him in the end. And in the same sense, it happened here too. So
here's what I'll ask you.
Yeah.
Is this a bright future for the Bills, or is it just like, do you think it's going to be hard for them to get back to where they were?
I think it's a combo of both. It's going to be tough in the sense that Miami's now coming in that division.
AFC's coming. They're getting better.
Well, yeah. I mean, overall, yeah. But you got to start in your division, and I'm being honest, Miami doesn't need to add a ton. I mean, Miami's defense, you can leave that alone, I think, for next year. You just need hope that you have a fully healthy offense. And I'm talking, you can probably leave Tua the way he is, but if you get a healthy wide receiving core where Parker's healthy, and Williams is healthy, and Gesicki's healthy, and you have your running back with Gaskin healthy, I mean, that's an offense I do not want to. That's a team in general I don't want any part of, facing, especially in a one-game sample size, like, say, a wild card weekend or even divisional round.
And you also like Cleveland, too.
Well, that, again, separate division, but yeah, I mean, Cleveland's on the up. I mean, you look everywhere else.
What do they got to do?
Baltimore. Next year's kind of a little bit of a make or break here for Baltimore, I think. I mean, next year I think is going to be truly where you see. I mean, we know how good Lamar can be, but next year's going to be, in my mind, a year of, can he take you to that next step? I mean, you go to the other divisions. I think Tennessee is going to be probably your steadfast team in the AFC South.
They're kind of like Buffalo. They got to work on that defense.
Yeah, but this was a weird year for them defensively. Defensively is what carried them the past couple of years. But Vrabel's a defensive guy, so I'm not worried so much about them in that sense. And then out west, obviously the Chiefs.
Chargers
lost a lot of, not so much, obviously, I think they made overall the right decision with Anthony Lynn. No, I don't think a lot of the problems were associated directly with him. But they lost the offensive coordinator who worked with Herbert. He's going to Philly the way it sounds. So,
Raiders, Vegas?
Well, every year we ask, are the Raiders for real every freaking time, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
Look, Like I said, Buffalo, I think it's a combo of both. They need to. I think it'd be in their best interest if everybody on coaching staff is able to stay. That Houston job's going to be the X factor. Nobody really wants it. Somebody's got to take it. I don't know if it's going to be Leslie Frazier or Bieniemy or Josh McCown. Apparently, I don't know who's going to take it. But if you're Buffalo, I think you hope that Frazier stays. Now, Buffalo had a couple opt-outs on defense, so I'd like to see defensively what they can do with the guys who come back who opted out. Offensively is where I have question marks. I think you need to probably bolster that offensive line to some degree. I think you can do that in the draft. They're in the right spot to draft an offensive lineman this year for the most part. Because I think the draft this year is going to be extremely top-heavy with star talent. Your skill position guys, obviously quarterback-wise, which they don't necessarily need. I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news to Bills fans, but Diggs is not going to be Diggs can't be a number one guy for you. He's a slot guy. That's how he made his living. You can't live with him being your number one and Cole Beasley being your number two. You can get away with it probably for another year, but you aren't going to have a longevity deal with it. I think you need to bolster our offensive line this year. And, it all depends kind of who takes who where in the draft. If somehow Najee Harris falls to you, take him. I think you just got to take him. I'm not saying that Singletary is bad, but your run game needs help. It does need help, admittedly. I think their highest run game all year was 46 yards from Singletary or something like that.
That would be an awesome pickup to get Harris.
So I think for them, and that's the tough part. I think you're going to need to help run game-wise somebody with Josh Allen because defenses are going to be able to adapt to him quickly next year now. That's what happened with Lamar this past year. It's what happens with pretty much every quarterback that kind of has that similar skill set where you can kind of run, you can throw. That was a problem. Watson was able to work out of it, and that's what you hope with Lamar and with Josh is once they have a year where it's in your face, you can work yourself out of it. So the Bills have. I'll put it to you this way: I think the Bills have a more complicated path. It's not like a one and done deal. I think the future is bright for them, but it's gonna be tough because you're gonna have to deal with Kansas City still for the future, and then perceivably for the next 5 years at least.
Yep.
Plus whoever else, and that's the thing with football especially, just changes so much year to year. Maybe not so much your super top teams, but your middle ground teams to the last guys who make it into the playoffs, those go in and out every year. If you catch lightning in a bottle, man, it's tough to stop a team going downhill. So I'll put it to you this way. The Bills should make the playoffs no problem each year the next 3 to 4 years in my mind. It's going to be a matter.
Especially with 7 games.
It's going to be a matter of can they upgrade in the trenches and will they be able to grow themselves out of the growing pains?
It just sucks. Brady was terrorizing them for years.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get by him, and now it looks like they can't get by Mahomes, and they come so close this year. Awesome year. And yet Brady's still going to the Super Bowl, and and they're not. It just sucks to see and to hear. But my last point I'll say to you, Paul, on the conference championships, what is your opinion of Davante Adams today?
Same as it always been. He's not a number one. He's a number two. Overrated. And you had it. It was prime example of what happened. I've been trying to tell y'all for freaking 2 years now.
Davante Adams. Some people say he's the best in the game.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know he's freaking D-Hop now. DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the game. Hands down. He's the number one wide receiver I'm taking. Hands down. Not looking back, whatever.
Give my boy Kenny Galladay some minutes here. He'll kill
I mean, Galladay...
He's on the move.
Galladay's not going to be freaking either... Well, if he stays in Detroit, he's pinned with whoever the hell they're able to get, which...
It might be my fantasy self talking about this, but...
Fire away.
I think Diggs is the number one receiver. I'm a fan of him. I'll defend the Bills fans. You hear that? I'm your defender here. I think he's the number one.
Look...
Adams.
They need to be prepared for a Diggs meltdown.
Yeah, I know. He could be like Cam Newton. When he's winning, he seems like he's the best. When he loses, you never know. But time will tell.
Oh, interesting. We have some breaking news.
MLB-ish?
No. We'll get to it, though. Speaking of MLB, though, Nick, obviously, by the way, before we jump ahead here, we'll discuss everything Super Bowl next week on the pod. Hopeful to get a guest in here talking about it, talking to a couple people here. So hopefully get somebody in here with us.
Maybe Ali Marpet? Get him on the phone.
Shout out to Hobart, by the way, with that. Yeah. We didn't discuss that, but that's pretty cool.
I don't want to spoil a little paper for the story. I'm trying to get a hold of Ali's sister and write a story about him. And I talked to his sister, and I think his coach. I'm just in the beginning process of it. His coach, I think, is from Horseheads. So, maybe I'll get Ali Marpet on here. And Tom Brady over here. Then our numbers will jump up.
Not a knock on Brady, but if I'm having my choice of Buccaneers, I need Gronk.
Yeah, okay.
I want Gronk.
All right.
I want to talk to Gronk. I want to do a... all right, look, you know this, but back in the day, I wouldn't do it religiously, but I'd shotgun a beer. I wasn't afraid of it. It's been a while since I'd shotgun a beer, but I would shotgun a beer with Gronk in a minute.
Yeah, I'd do it, but it'd be pretty embarrassing because he would finish way more faster than I would.
That's not the point.
It'd be embarrassing, but I'd do it. MLB?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not MLB exactly, but the MLB Baseball Hall of Fame election was today, and for the first time since 2013, and 9th time overall, nobody is getting in the class this year.
The doors are locked.
I don't know where to start. So we'll start with the actual.
Did you have some beef?
We'll start with the voting itself. Your top vote getter was Kurt Schilling. He got 71.1% of the vote. Slight tick up for him from last year.
And you need 75.
You need 75 to get into the Hall of Fame. Then Bonds and Clemens were 2 and 3. Both, we'll call it 61%, had 61% of the vote. Scott Rowland saw a nice uptick with effectively 17% points up from last year, 52%. Omar Vizquel had a dip. He's down to 49. Wagner had a nice tick of 15%. He's up to 46. Todd Helton, a nice bump as well with 15% tick with him. He's up to 44%. Gary Sheffield had a 10% tick up. He's at 40. Same with Andrew Jones, 14% up as well to 33. Jeff Kent, small tick up as well, 5% at 32. Manny Ramirez stayed flat at 28. Sammy Sosa had a 4% tick up as well to 17. Indy Pet, second time on the ballot for him. He's up to 13% from 11 last year. Your first timers on the ballot this year that were able to, as we'll call it, make the cut to next year. Mark Burley, 11%. Torrey Hunter, 9.5%. And Tim Hudson, 5.2%, just making it in. Abreu continues on as well with 8.7%. Falling off the ballot, Aramis Ramirez, LaTroy Hawkins, Barry Zito, AJ Burnett, Michael Kadire, Dan Hare, Nick Swisher, and Shane Victorino. I want to talk about one of those guys in a minute. But Nick, I'll ask you, because when I get going on this, I think I'm going to end up going for a couple minutes at least.
Which is fine.
What are your thoughts on this ballot? There's a lot of... at minimum, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this year's ballot with the way a lot of people presented their ballots, their reasoning on things. You had 14 voters turn in blank ballots. What's your thought on the ballot and kind of with the guys involved? player-wise this year, the guys
Well,
involved.
shout out to my boys AJ Burnett and Aramis Ramirez. 5 years ago was the last time the Pirates made the playoffs. So those are my boys. 98-win team. Had to play in a one-game playoff. Not happy about that, but second best record that year too. My thoughts on it, and I think I've said this to you before. My thoughts on it, the whole process is stupid. Are you a Hall of Famer or are you not a Hall of Famer? I think they should get rid of the minimum of 10 votes, and I think it should be one vote.
If you think a guy's in, vote for him.
If he's in or he's not. You go these 10 years, like Edgar Martinez took 10 years to make the Hall of Fame. 10 years, in those 10 years, he didn't play one MLB game to move his stats up. Are you in it or are you not? And I think the reason they do it is because of the minimum of 10 votes. I mean, you only get 10 votes, so, maybe not room for you this year, but still, I don't understand if you're a Hall of Famer or not. But this year's voting, if I have to talk about how the process does work, little surprised no one made it. But also not surprised because the top guys up there were the controversy guys, the steroids guys, I think I'm not even sure what my opinion is on Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Like, I'm not even sure if I believe they should get in. They did cheat, They did cheat the game. Obviously, they were already talented before they started cheating, especially Barry Bonds, don't remember too much, but obviously I don't remember because I wasn't alive but when he played for Pittsburgh. And but he was a talented ball player. My dad always has that theory. The reason he did it was because McGuire and Sosa were getting all the fame, and yet he was a very talented ball player, so he just did it to be even better.
Probably had the biggest ego of them all, though, or smallest ego, depending upon the way you look at it.
They all have big egos, but he probably is the biggest. And it's just, I hate to see, even these guys that were up there, obviously, to get on, I think you got to have like 10 years of minimum experience or something like that.
Yeah.
And, it's just always cool nowadays because I've been a fan of the game for so long to see these guys like, oh, my God, yeah, I remember Michael Kadire. Yeah. I remember Barry Zito. It's been 5 years since those guys left.
Yeah.
A-Rod still hasn't popped up. When did he
retire? Next year's his first year.
Man.
Yeah, buckle up for that ballot next year.
Manny's on, right?
Yep.
It was his first year this year?
No, I believe it was like his 5th or so.
Yeah, but the thing that gets Barry Bonds, he never got caught. It's obvious as day.
Well, so that's the thing.
All right, Paul, you bring it. You get it going. Let's see.
I'll start with this. Tom Brady, who I have a lot of respect for, he's probably from a true writer standpoint of the game of baseball, probably the best in our lifetimes. I've used that term a lot today, but really, Verducci is probably the best in our lifetime in terms of pure artistry of writing about baseball. And don't get me wrong, I still have a lot of respect for him, but for me, he did lose respect from me today. He had this piece on MLB Network about how, the weight of the ballot. And he talked about character and the character clause that you're supposed to abide by with the Hall of Fame. And he's going through it. He's talking about the guys he voted for. Billy Wagner, did he have the innings? Well, it's close, but he had about, he's talking about how he had a slider that couldn't be hit, so he's in for me. Scott Rowland, does he have numbers as a third baseman? Well, or the third baseman? Well, when you look at it, he's actually, third only behind Mike Schmidt and Brooks Robinson in terms of, like, games played with hits and gold gloves. So he's in. Kurt Schilling, debatable character, but postseason, whatever. One of only 3 pitchers to have multiple 300 strikeout seasons. He's in. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, well, I don't know about their character, so they're off. I mean, you want to talk about hypocrisy. How can you say that about Schilling, who, by all means that we know of for sure, is about one of like the worst human beings outside of actually committing like a murderous crime, outside of baseball. And sure, on the field, Clemens and Bonds, and they're no saints exactly off the field either. But compared to Schilling, they're almost borderline saintly off the field in some respects. Especially when you look at it now, Bonds and Clemens are giving back to the game. Schilling's not. But you draw the line with Clemens and Bonds and not Schilling? Because I think I'd draw the line more at Schilling than I do Clemens and Bonds. It's the character clause for me is the most bullcrap thing. The Hall of Fame at this point is nothing more than a glorified museum. You have shrines in there dedicated to Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and Bonds and Clemens, who I have a theory about Bonds and Clemens, which I'll touch on in a minute. But they're effectively blackballed out of the Hall of Fame. But don't get me wrong, as long as the patron's check or credit card or money clears, as long as that $17.50 clears, we have no problem with putting their jersey or their bat or their helmet or their glove in that display case. But that plaque, no. That's where we draw the line. And it's crap. I'm sorry to tell people that. It's crap. I mean, it's like I said, it's bull. The first commissioner of baseball, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, is a known racist. He's in the Hall of Fame. Blackballed black ball players out of this league for years. Cap Addison, one of the first people in the Hall of Fame, known racist, known Klan member. Black is in the Hall of Fame. Rogers Hornsby, regarded as one of the best hitters of all time, known gambler, in the Hall of Fame. King Kelly, guy who pitched for the Boston Bean Eaters, in the Hall of Fame, known gambler. In fact, I forgot who did the actual survey itself, but King Kelly is like the fifth most notorious gambler in baseball, monetary standing point wise. So I struggle to sit here and knowing those people are in the Hall of Fame. And knowing Shoeless Joe Jackson and P. Rose in the Hall of Fame. And then you want to talk about the PED side of things. Nick, do you know what greenies are?
No.
Okay. Greenies are effectively speed. They're an amphetamine. They get you hyper-focused, hyper-alerted. Effectively, it helps with hand-eye coordination. You know the first player that knowingly brought greenies into the clubhouse and used them? A guy regarded as the best hitter in baseball history, Ted Williams. Think about that. Ted Williams was it. There are guys in the Hall of Fame that I know for a fact from the 50s, 60s, and 70s when greenies were at its height, when allegedly 85% of major leaguers took them. They're in the Hall of Fame. There are guys that took steroids that are in the Hall of Fame anyway that we know of. Well, that we allegedly know of. If Barry Bonds, I use this example a lot. I know I've said it to you, Nick. If Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens got hit by a bus theoretically and died in 1997, they're in in 98. They would do what they did for Clemente.
Mm-hmm.
So the character clause thing to me, I get it. Look, I get it. Being a decent human being is of the utmost importance above anything else. But the fact of the matter is we have known racists, we have known rapists, racists, and murderers in the Hall of Fame. Well, not known murderers. Yeah. Allegedly, Ty Cobb killed a drifter.
I think they should be in.
And look, I'm not telling how people should vote. I don't want to harp on that aspect of it. Everybody's got their own opinion on it. And I'm not trying to say steroids were a great thing, but without guys like Bonds and Clemens and McGuire and Sosa, I don't know if baseball's saved after the debacle of 1994. I just don't. I don't think it is, People say, oh, Cal Ripken's the one who saved it. I'm sure, and look, he did to a degree, but, I mean, think about how the nation was crazy of the home run chase for McGuire and Sosa. I mean, just absurd. People cared about that. People care about baseball like no other way since. It's a tragedy. To me, it's a modern tragedy because you just have people who, in my mind, knew it and ignored it at the time, and now it's their version of, well, we're going to get back at these guys who they think are a-holes. to them because they didn't give them like a quote they wanted or something, or they didn't sign something for their kid's birthday or something like that. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I don't get how Nick Swisher is not 100% in the Hall of Fame this year. You know what I mean? Nick Swisher is known as being this great clubhouse guy, fan favorite. You know, same thing with A.J. Burnett. If that, by that regard, A.J. Burnett should be 100% in. Although on the field he's a bit of curmudgeon, all accounts show A.J. Burnett as being one of the best teammates in ever. You know, it's just it for me. It's for me. It's borderline blasphemy the way some of these guys act. And I know I don't want to make it sound like whatever here, but think about the Baseball Writers Association of America. It's just like a bunch of old white dudes who think they still have relevance, for the most part. And at this point, you don't. To me, you don't. I mean, I recognize Pete Rose as the best hitter of all time. You know, numerically speaking. I recognize Barry Bonds as being the home run king. You know, steroids or not, gambling or not, you still got to freaking get out there and hit that baseball. It's a round ball with a round bat, and they tell you to hit it square. Good luck. If it was easy, Nick, me and you wouldn't be here right now. Me and you would be in Tampa getting ready for spring training in a month.
A.J. Burnett should be in.
So, me and you had a nice little discussion about Aramis Ramirez, he was one of the guys I was hoping would at least make it to next year's ballot, and he's the only one of the four I wish that didn't. I was hoping Hudson, Burley, and Torrey Hunter would. Those three did. Aramis Ramirez did not. Aramis Ramirez, and I don't mean this as a knock to you, Nick, as a Pirates fan, but he was stuck on probably the worst Pirates teams really during that low time, in all fairness. But he has a 32.4 WAR. He has 386 home runs. That's fifth for third baseman all time. Statistically combined overall, he's a top 5 third baseman of all time. He has 3 All-Stars in the Silver Slugger, and unfortunately, I think he's out. It's one of those where you brought up, is this guy a Hall of Famer or not, and that's the way we should be able to vote. There should be no limit. And this year for me, if there was no limit, I would have also voted, like I said, Burley, Hunter, Hudson, and Aramis Ramirez. And I probably also would have voted Bobby Abreu as well. Although that one probably was a bit more of a fandom thing. I always loved Bobby Abreu. I thought he was a really great hitter, but got overshadowed in his time overall.
One thing I'll say about Ramirez is I didn't get to watch him play at the beginning of his career with the Pirates. But when he was on the Cubs, I was always scared when he came up. Him, Pujols, Prince Fielder, those guys back in the day.
But think about that. Think of the 3 guys you just named there. Ramirez, Pujols, and Fielder, right? Fielder, if he doesn't have that awful neck injury, he's still playing and probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Pujols is first ballot all day.
Yeah.
Probably should be unanimous, but we know outside of Rivera that's never going to happen apparently because whatever.
But definitely remember Jeter getting not unanimous.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, still a great moment.
But that again though is what you said. Like, if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. Like, you know.
Yeah, definitely true. And Ramirez, good to see him come back at the end there. Played probably the best Pirates team I've ever seen. Definitely the best team. And, I think he should have got some votes.
Aramis was one of because for me, believe it or not, I know judging by my size now, you wouldn't believe it anyway. But I was a third baseman coming up, through kind of like the high school system. And I didn't get converted over to first base until like 8th, 9th grade. But Aramis was always one of the guys I loved watching because he was not your traditional third baseman at that time in like the mid to late 2000s. He was certainly on the bigger side, not fat, but he was just built. And you had third baseman like, said Michael Kadire. Michael Kadire was a bit sleeker, for instance. You had guys like Melvin Morrow who was a bit sleeker.
Scott Rowland was bigger.
Scott Rowland was bigger, but not like built in the sense Aramis was.
You role model after?
I wouldn't say role model, but I would look at the way he would hit and try and find stuff in that. And he's still a guy when I coached, I would recommend watch hit. It was a very simple stance. He had one of the more simple stances I think ever, at least modern, like where you can kind of look back on YouTube and see clips and stuff like that. fairly straight up stance almost. He did have a nice bend. He had a bend at the knees, obviously, to keep athletic. But, I mean, he kept it very simple, and it worked very well, obviously.
Yeah.
And his glove, I mean, he had a fairly underrated glove overall. I mean, I don't think people realize he never won a gold glove. But, you also weren't concerned with him out there. Could he have been a bit quicker? Sure, whatever. But you could say that for 90% of the big leaguers. But, I mean, that's a guy I would take on my team any day of the week. He really is.
A.J. Burnett, the best Yankee Pirate pitcher of all time? Or is it Jameson Taillon?
Well, that's yet to be seen. What about Garrett Cole?
Garrett Cole, J-Hap.
Sean Chacon. Forgot about that one.
I remember him.
Francisco Cervelli.
Yep, Cervelli. And
position player pitching.
Russell Martin and Andrew McCutcheon.
Chris Stewart.
We for a time there, we had kept getting Yankee.
Craig Wilson played, I think, like a month for the Yankees at the tail end of his career, if I'm remembering.
When I messaged you guys the all-time Pirates Yankee team there, and I forgot all about who Casey McGahee was.
Oh, Casey McGahee.
Yep.
Oh, he had a year. He came back for a year with the Marlins a few years ago. I forgot about that.
Yeah. There was no Yankee Pirate third baseman, so I just chose him. But
I don't blame you.
No, good times. Enjoy Jameson. That one hurt, but, prospects.
Yeah.
We'll see how they go.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, like we alluded to, high school basketball is set to return in New York. Obviously,
high risk.
Start local for whatever. Pending local. Shut up. Pending local approval. So like I said, I don't want to speculate on anything. Me and Nick know extremely little overall here. We aren't.
Gus Johnson and Bill Rath.
I was going to say we aren't Woj. We aren't Shams of the Finger Lakes. We don't know too much. We're just excited that we're going to be able to see the kids back out on the court. Hopefully be able to broadcast some games again this year. Obviously last year, first year for us doing the broadcasting stuff.
Tons of fun.
Tail end for you, also doing some journalism stuff as well. It's going to be an interesting year. Obviously, everything's going to be condensed into about a 4 to 5 week range overall.
It's going to be fast.
Fast-paced. I think, hypothetically, if we had a full year, looking back on predictions, I think you would say someone like a Wayne who's bringing back pretty much everybody, right? Would be great. This year, I think you kind of just have to throw it out the window, in a sense, because say, for instance, you get one COVID case, it might just flat out kill your season. But secondly, I mean, you're going to be playing so much during the week. I think whoever just gets on a run early could just carry through the year.
I think what's interesting is will spectators be allowed at certain places? Obviously, us calling games or me journalism with the Times, we're going to be there regardless. But it's going to be weird if there was nobody at the game. There's always fans there, and that would be interesting. What kind of different protocols? Because I've noticed that with soccer and stuff. Yeah. Every school's different.
What was it like? So I didn't see any soccer games in person. Wise, what was it? What was the situation like with that? Do you remember it all?
Soccer, there was social distance crowds at every place that I went to. And
was there was there a limit at all or?
No. Yes. Each player gets 2 spectators. Okay. So anybody who was there was the 2 people that player got.
I'm guessing it's a safe bet. Basketball has something similar to that.
Yeah,
right?
Similar to that.
Probably a safe bet.
Swimming's been different. It was weird. I went to Gananda one time for swimming. Yeah. There was spectators there, but every other place I've gone to, there was no spectators for swimming because it's an indoor event. Yeah. So because soccer is outdoors.
Well, also with swimming, you don't have as much room for people there.
Yes, basketball. Yeah, it's fan recommended. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be about the same. You probably have to wear a mask, and soccer, once you got socially distanced, you could take your mask off. Basketball, you might have to leave it on the whole time.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting what happens. I don't know a lot on it yet, but
it's gonna
be fun.
I know some news came out during the podcast just now, so I'm not gonna exactly read it straight up. But per Section 5, it sounds like pending approval, obviously they'll start Monday, February 1st, next Monday. It looks like they're going to have the regular season must end on Saturday, March 6th. And then a sectional play will be concluded by Sunday, March 14th. So, yeah, I mean, this is about, like I said, this is going to be about a 5 to 6 week window, more or less.
Probably get one crack at each team.
Yeah, one or two. I think it's going to be only league only. So
okay, so yeah.
So you'll probably have 2 at each team, but you're only going to play. I'm not too sure exactly what the numbers
are. There's 8
are.
teams, probably 14 games.
You're probably about a 14-ish, right? Yeah. 14, probably 12 to 14.
No, just no non-league.
No non-league. So until you get to sectionals, which is different at that point. Okay, so per New York State Department of Health. Only 2 spectators per athlete, but local health departments can be more restrictive. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I think us at Finger Lakes One here will be on the move quite a bit, hopefully. And
it's definitely going to be odd because some
fingers crossed.
I mean, obviously some arenas are different, but on a Friday night, Saturday night, those gyms are pretty packed.
About to say, I mean, you think of like Geneva, especially places Geneva, Wayne, Waterloo. Yeah. Here in Santa Falls with Minders.
You're gonna.
I mean, those places usually get bumping pretty good.
Yeah.
Newark too.
Especially people are dying.
Yeah,
for these type of sports.
People want to get out, but
normal those diehard fans, they don't have a kid or anything. Probably not going to be able to go to the game, and it's just definitely going to be weird. It's going to be like a Tuesday night crowd for every game, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's going to be not as packed as you're used to, but they're out there playing, and it should be fun.
Yeah, so we'll get to look forward to that, obviously.
And we do a great job here at FL1.
We do.
I got the best camera guy.
Jim does a really good job getting everything up and going with that, and obviously, and everybody from the hunts to.
Even if I'm not there, I'll be texting Jim. This updated.
That's the thing. We do a really good job of keeping up with each other to provide updates and everything like that, especially sectional time. Which this year especially this will be all more imperative. Anyway, that takes us to the end of the show for this week. Thank everybody for tuning in. Next week we'll come at you with obviously Super Bowl prediction stuff. We'll probably do practically an all Super Bowl thing unless something crazy happens elsewhere. Nick, who are you shouting out today?
I'll shout out my buddy from the FL Times, Pete Lambos, now the sports editor.
Oh, no.
He is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and
what?
Yeah, he's from Tampa.
Oh, the hell is he doing up here?
He's Canadian, but from Tampa.
What?
And he's from Tampa.
Pete, look, I like you. Even though I haven't met you, I like you. But, man, this sounds like a weird adventure.
And he went to Hobart, so, Ali Marpet, he just did a story on him,
Does he have an Ali Marpet jersey?
Not sure. But he's been pretty, his teams have been pretty good. He's a Raptors fan, Buccaneers.
Tampa Rappers.
Rays fan, Lightning fan. And now his Raptors, the only one he wasn't a fan is the Raptors.
Yeah, the Tampa Raptors,
gone
baby.
to Tampa now, so everything's good for him. The Rays went to the series. Lightning won the championship.
Yeah.
He's good for him right now.
Yeah.
But, anyway, shout out Pete. Hope all is well.
That concludes Fresh Takes with Russo and Felice. Thank everybody for tuning in. My shout out, have the week, Montgomery Biscuits, AA of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Should have done Mr. Matt.
Whatever. It's a biscuit.
It's just another hat to add to the show's collection.
Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you next week. And please, everybody, wear your masks. We'll catch you next time.